Now I request Dr. Rakesh Kumar, Chief Mentor for this workshop as well as WTRT India's activity, to give welcome address. Dr. Rakesh Kumar, please.
Good morning to all of you. I didn't hear anything. Good morning. It's a little slow morning. The way we have started looks like 15 minutes late, but we'll try to cover some of these. Looking at our earlier experience of first event that we did in Mumbai, we want to improve our experience this time. So may I now actually welcome the people here who have been distinguished speakers themselves and distinguished persons. Dr. Sukumar Deveta, who has been former director of NIRI, Dr. Moose, who is from director GIZ. Then we have a lot of Dr. Patrick here, Sunil Kumar, who has been coordinating this activity for quite some time. And then we also have a lot of distinguished people in the audience right now who would be coming and speaking here. For example, Professor Sawant, Professor and Dr. Mistry from GPCB, Dr. Dubey from Assam Pollution Control Board, Dr. Vijay Kulkarni, Professor Somnath Mukherjee, and many such people. We are actually thankful for all of you who have been able to make it to this event. Few things that we wanted to share before we go ahead in this program is that why we are again meeting after 6 months. We met in August 2012, and that was the time when we discussed major issues, what we are facing in our country, and we also tried to get experience as well as the experience and opinion of people from different countries as well in the last meeting and brainstorming that we have had. In this particular event, we are looking at two different and distinct objectives, and that's why we are looking at very intense participation from all of you. One is when we say this title called short-term and long-term solution for MSW problems in Indian cities, there are few things are connected with that. One, of course, is that MSW problem, the way we look at in our country, and particularly mega countries and mega cities, and some of even our smaller cities are actually as big as many big cities in Europe. We need to divide our problem, because if you look at this whole problem in a particular way, it looks like one solution is not fitting in a particular way that it will solve our problem of municipal solid waste management. And since we have our rules, Municipal Solid Waste Handling Rules 2000, we need to also look at how is it functioning in our country. And if it's functioning in a particular way, can we do some modification so that it becomes more effective. So I was thinking that we need to define and divide our cities and then try to look at solutions. So can we divide our cities, say large cities or mega cities, then medium-sized cities, and then we talk about smaller cities. In my terminology, I would not call it population, but I would say municipal solid waste generation capacities of these cities. So some of the smaller cities, but important ones like Mahabaleshwar, Panchgani, which are tourist places, they experience sudden increase in municipal solid waste during certain seasons. But their waste quantity doesn't go above 5 tons, 10 tons per day. And then on the other hand, we have cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, Chennai, where we are exceeding 4,000 tons, 5,000 tons. So the spectrum is too large, and most of the other cities do come in between. So if we are looking at filling the gaps of short-term and long-term solution, we should be looking at in each of these cities whether a similar collection and transportation system which exists today, is it working in all the cities in a similar fashion. For example, transportation, if we take in a smaller city, is being done in a small vehicles, rickshaw puller kind of vehicles. In a bigger cities, you require big, mega structured vehicles which are taking all these quantities. The biggest challenge that we are facing right now in cities is the processing problem, treatment and processing. And that's where we feel that the scale of technology matters. And why it also matters is the moment our scale of technology becomes too large, the conceptualization to implementation phase, at least from the current experience, looks like it takes anywhere between 2 years to 4 years. Now, 2 years is very, very optimistic. Very few projects have been able to get completed in 2 years from the concept to implementation. I would say 4 years is more realistic. And looking at our experience of this implementation of MSW rules in our country, it appears that for smaller cities and even to some extent bigger cities, we need to look at some problems and solutions which can be done in a year's time, 1.5 year, maximum 2 years time. And that's what I would call it short-term solution, where we should be able to show that we have been able to make a difference in a short time. And for that, what is that issue which we want to cover, and we need to discuss this in our meeting today. Very ironically, if you see large cities who have enough finances for municipal solid waste handling, transportation, treatment and disposal, they are struggling. They are struggling from all angles. And similarly, if you look at smaller cities where they don't have money, they are also struggling. So we have a very unique situation where at one point in time, say 10 years back, we would say that our municipal solid waste is not getting done in a proper way. It's not being managed properly only because India is a poor country and doesn't have enough finances. But now when we look at some of the cities' finances, some of them are very well off. They spend in case of Mumbai, they spend about 1,200 crores. 1,200 crores is a big quantity of big fund which they spend in handling this. I guess the other cities also spend in the range of about 600 to 1,000 crores, the mega cities. So money is not an issue. I think the way we have been able to structure or not able to structure, that's the issue. When we come to other things which are critical, particularly on processing, on technology issues, we have seen that technology verification has become a big aspect of the whole game. And I am talking about only the processing and disposal part of it, where we have seen that most of the projects which have got done successfully or unsuccessfully in this country, those were mostly vendor driven. And it's not a criticism, because since there is an absence of analysis, people who can give feedback, people who can write good reviewed literature and the project report, it is likely to happen. But even in this current situation where vendor driven technologies have been implemented, we need to take a step back and do that review right now. And that's something which we would want to discuss here and debate here in this brainstorming of 2 days that we are trying to do. Second aspect is benchmarking of services. Many places wherever we have seen and reviewed, NEERI did 59 cities study where we looked at almost all cities across the country. Besides these 59 cities, in subsequent years, 4-5 years, we did almost 12 more cities and probably reviewed some of the cities which we had done earlier. It appears that the service level benchmark is something which is missing in most of the cities. So we have enough manpower. We have been able to spend as much money as we would want to, but the quality of services don't show the effect that we want it to happen. And therefore benchmarking is something which we need to define, and what that benchmark should be another agenda of this discussion that we are discussing in today and tomorrow in our meeting and brainstorming here. The other few things which appear smaller but sometimes can become very critical is that when we say mega sizes, mega plans, let's not distribute our problems into small problems and try to solve it. We should create everything together and solve one shot. So it has worked in many places. In our country, it is yet to show how would it work and how soon can it work. There are few other issues are relating which are very, very critical are space constraints. Most of the cities are struggling with space constraint. That can we do our all municipal solid waste handling, disposal, processing and disposal within the city, or can we look at outside? And if we are looking at outside, how do we do it? the issues of social acceptance is something which has not been discussed at all. It is always that the municipal corporation and councils do their own design and everything, and after that they say this is what the cost is and you need to pay. The method of payment, recovery of payment are something which again municipal corporations are trying to do it on their own. But what we are saying is, let's do one more study, one more level of verification and acceptance analysis, where we say what is that people are willing to pay. In sociology terms, socioeconomic term, they call it willingness to pay study. Are people willing to pay more if your quality of services are very high? People are willing to pay if your treatment, processing and disposal is of the world class? So that's something which needs to be also accounted for. And related to that is, what is the administrative reforms which we want to do? Without some of these administrative reforms, we have not been able to, as of now, we have not been able to show that we can do a good job of MSW management. When we look at smaller cities which are becoming a cause of concern, not in the media right now. In media, mostly we see the stories of big cities. We see Bangalore cases, Mumbai, Chennai, all those. But smaller cities, solid waste managements are not being discussed as much as it should be. But the problem is not small. The problem is even bigger and even more grave, because the disease burden from these small cities, waste management or absence of waste management is extremely high. And therefore, as a group here, when we are debating for the whole country, we should be looking at, in these places where there is no money, finances is a big problem in small cities, how do we make a difference? And for that, what is that we need to discuss and debate and come out with solution which could be implemented and which we can share with the government, saying that these are the methods and a methodology that we should adopt. There are few areas of innovation from research. Let's take one example of landfilling, landfill process or landfilling guidelines, sanitary landfilling guideline that CPCB has is an excellent piece of document. But can we do the same thing for a city which is generating just 3 tons a day, generating 5 tons a day, even 50 tons a day? These are so expensive, the way it is designed, that some of these small cities are unlikely to do it, and some people who have done it, they have done it in a very, very shabby manner. So we need to again innovate as a community, that can we think of some alternatives of this landfilling procedure till some of these municipal council and corporation become big enough to afford all those scientific landfill design which CPCB has. In processing, again, as I said, one size doesn't fit all. So if we are talking about smaller cities, medium-sized cities, what are the technology sets which become very important and which could be supported? And when we say supported, we mean that as a community of practices, the scientific community, academic community, practitioners here, and all those people who are consultant or implementing organizations, they need to put in their own thoughts that can we do it the same way everywhere? And if we need to do it, what are those options that we can do? Opportunity to innovate is also in terms of what is the kind of jobs that we can create. This is a sector where informal sector jobs are plenty. We have learned from some papers which have come in ADB and World Bank documents, where it says that in India almost about 2.5 million people work in unorganized sector in solid waste management. But the moment we are thinking of improving it in a way that it will become good for all of us, can we say in a structured fashion, are we creating some real good green jobs which is liked by people? People should be willing to go in that sector. People need to be trained, and many implementing agencies are actually looking for good people to come and join them. Right now they are in the process of training. I don't see too much of academic organization doing that kind of training. So that's another area of innovation. Decentralized thinking for smaller cities is something which we need to debate and again come to some conclusion. So lastly, before all the other panelists speak, I thought I'll just flag out some of the major issues and questions that we wanted to address in this two days workshop. One is that can the country work with same rules? Right now, municipal solid waste rules that we have, or can we do little bit of changes? I understand there is some revision which is being discussed, but those revisions, anything and everything which is coming, can we contribute from this community here, that what are those changes which we want to do? And I give you one example. Most of the municipal solid waste projects in our country, while implementation, most of the implementing agencies have faced a big problem of odor, a smell problem. And they have been installed mainly because of this reason. Of course, there could be some other minor reasons, but mostly it's the smell and odor problem. But if you look at MSW rules, all the gases that we monitor, or particulate matter that we monitor, they do not smell. So we need to include some of those parameters which smell in our rules. So that's the kind of reform which should come in our rules as such. Even the standards which we have prescribed for composting, the standard which we have prescribed for incineration need to be looked at again as we talk about smaller size and big size. We need to again document what are the major successes that we have had, either as a community here in our own country but elsewhere as well. WTRT as a community here is actually to fill that gap, all the successes and the stories that we have had from different countries. And last 2 points are, can we derive the real costs? There are all kind of varieties of financial structures of municipal solid waste projects. What are the real costs? And if those real costs are being met, who is going to pay and how it is going to be paid? And the last one I would say is, should we think of doing incremental improvement in municipal solid waste management right now, or should we do leapfrogging? And if we need to do leapfrog, then of course we need to be sure where we are landing. And that's what we would want to debate in this 2 days brainstorming. And thank you very much for joining us. We are very happy that we have had all types of people who have been able to come and participate. And thank you very much. Welcome all of you in this workshop. And let's see, we have an intense discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your thought-provoking speech on MSW management system and for the 2 days workshop which we will be discussing.